having the courage to win. So this is like kind of a topic that I've seen kind of a lot, and I wanted to kind of discuss. And if you're kind of in a field, whether that's like sports or business or any other field where you're really working towards like a kind of big success or a big win, and you've been maybe working at it for a while, maybe months or years, and you are like kind of in the thick of it, and you have like ups and downs, and some days where things are good and some days where things aren't, and you have all kinds of challenges and obstacles and good days and bad days. um, I feel like if you do the journey for years and you really put in work, and consistently put in work over a long time, there are times like later on where you kind of reach a point where you've sort of made it, in the sense that like if you have a company, maybe it gets to a certain cap and it's going to it's gonna go public, or you're gonna kind of reach that high income mark that you had always like aspired for. If that's in powerlifting, maybe that's like, oh, like hitting a certain number for a lift, like you reach that point where like you're almost there and you're gonna hit it. Basically you come to a point where you're pretty close to hitting your goal that you had originally set. And um and the thing, like the courage to win, the courage to hit that. At that point, it takes like a lot of courage, ironically, to go and admit that you're not gonna lose and that you're gonna win. To admit it to yourself on the inside, on the inside that like you're gonna succeed, and that like these like impossible things, like something that you've literally dreamed of, that maybe millions of people like won't get to do, like very few people will get to do, maybe you're going to go and do it, that you're actually going to achieve it and do it. And once you do it, it'll kind of be like a dream. It's like you can't think of it logically, almost, because you'll like go crazy if you think about it, but it's like, yes, you're doing this thing, or it's been done, you know. So it takes like a kind of courage to be able to accept that. And I feel like it's not something you really do in your head. You can't do it mentally, but you have to kind of like do it in your body. Like you have to kind of take a deep breath and like relax your muscles, relax your body, and you kind of embrace and accept that it's gonna happen. And it does. And every person who's had like ridiculous, like really high level success, they reached that threshold, and then they had to cross that threshold, and then they had to get to that point where like they're gonna have those kind of impossible wins, that like big success, and they're there, they've had it, and like they have to kind of embrace it and accept that, like, okay, this is who I am. I'm still a person, I'm still a human being, but these successes did happen, and like, yes, I've been working for it for years, and in that moment you don't know how to feel, but like when it happens, it's like you kind of embrace it, you accept it. And you have to be able to kind of allow that within yourself to be able to achieve those successes and grow to become the person who can achieve them, and like kind of like earn them and have the right to be the person who has them, who's like conquered those problems and those challenges, and overcome those obstacles, and like had that great success. I keep thinking of like the Elon Musk story, that Elon Musk and his brother, like they were 24, and his brother Kimball Musk said that it was like they were kind of like dogs that were like left to starve for like 3 or 4 years. They just worked insanely, worked crazy hours, and worked really hard, and like didn't make much money. Like they lived out of their office, and they showered at the gym and stuff. They ate out of Jack in the Box, and then they did that for years. And it was pretty extreme of a story. But then he said that after 3 or 4 years, they reached that point where suddenly, like it was like they were given all the steaks that they could eat, and like they kind of like won that big success. They got everything that they had dreamed of and more. They got to sell their company for millions. They each got to walk away with millions. And um, and my point is this, that like when you reach that point, like before getting there, you have to, at some point you see it coming, and you see that like you've been struggling, and you feel like you're going to just struggle the rest of your life, and like this problem that you have, it's going to be a problem for the rest of your life. But you have to accept, you have to kind of goes with believe that it may happen, that you'll have those successes, but then also when it does come, like crossing that threshold, you have to be able to cross that threshold and see that, okay, it's coming, I'm gonna have these successes, I'm gonna have these wins, and take a deep breath and like, okay, like I'm still human, still a regular guy, and be humble and like be grateful, be very grateful, and then you accept that it's going to happen, and you have to be able to accept that, and then you can kind of keep your sanity, and you can hopefully be the kind of person that you were before, like as in terms of being like a decent person, a decent human being. You can be that after, and you can still not change too crazily as a person, because what happens to a lot of people when they get that success right away is that they change immensely as a person, in that like suddenly they're spending all this money, or like hanging around these friends that maybe don't care about them, and then just care about like what their status or their wealth or their prestige can get them, and what, like, you're hanging around fake friends, or you're buying things you don't need, and you're spending all kinds of crazy money. Maybe you're doing drugs, or drinking, or doing alcohol, and you get into all these different things. You're not the person you were anymore. Hopefully, if you accept that like those successes are gonna happen, then that kind of spiraling out of control, like after you have those big wins, doesn't happen. And if you go and look, it happens to a lot of different athletes, a lot of big name athletes, a lot of entrepreneurs who kind of piss away their wealth and spend it on really dumb stuff. And I just think that like it can happen if you um, don't kind of ease into it, and don't kind of allow your character to grow and change as those successes come. And the biggest thing that like you embrace and you accept that, like, okay, these changes are happening, they're going to happen. Take a deep breath, meditate maybe a little bit, and like you kind of get your mind clear, and you accept like, okay, yes, this is going to happen, and you be at peace with it, and you be at ease with it, and you kind of accept that at the end of the day it's like a game that you're playing, and it's great to have these successes, but maybe what makes you truly the happiest inside, like you've had from day one, and you're going to have after, hopefully, and that you just kind of take the wins as they come and be grateful, and that's it, and do your part for other people. But it's just really important to do that, because inevitably we change, and like to a certain degree, we as human beings, how we change, like we don't have we have control over it, but we don't. And you have to, it's like you kind of allow that change to happen within, like, and when those changes are naturally happening, you have to like kind of allow it and not resist against it, and like allow yourself to change into the person that you're becoming. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that topic, like a little bit. I feel like if you're gonna have like a big success, maybe, and it's always like something that you've worked at for years and years, when you're at that later stage of that journey, and you're gonna finally make that big win, you're gonna make that $1 million, you're gonna lift that 700 pounds, whatever. You have to kind of reach that point where you're accepting and embracing that, okay, I'm changing this like impossible problem that I had, that I've worked on for years. I'm gonna solve and come to the end of it, and that's okay. And you kind of take a deep breath, embrace it, kind of ease yourself, and accept that it's gonna happen, and then you go on, and you go, and you allow the success to happen, and you be at peace with it, and try to be kind of the same sort of guy that you were before, and don't drastically change, or drastically try to do things differently once those changes in your life happen, and you try to be at peace and ease, and be kind of the same person within that you were before you are after the success.